I have this thing called land whispering where I go, we've got one land, one air, one water. So we've got to look after them. If we've only got that number of things, we have to be the responsible ones, because we're about to be the ones who draw the picture that says that we're going to destroy that piece of habitat in some way.
There's the man in the hat, always with the best hats.
Well, I've always had these hats. Well, I've always had, different open road hats. But I did it because of the TV show.
Yeah.
And I went, how do you take a signature that nobody else here would have? And so that you become just like you said, the guy in the hat. That was the whole aim of it. And TV show just went out. Started airing last week.
Oh, nice.
So, yeah, we've been shooting it I've been the host of Queensland for a year. But I went, how do you do something that is not going to detract from what you're doing, but also just give you a signature that other people will go, oh, yeah, that's it, go with the hat.
Yeah. So that's just not what all Australians wear. That's...
No. They wear Kubras. I'm actually a Kiwi.
Oh, really?
So I don't want to necessarily so I don't really push identifying as an Australian, just because there's such a rivalry between the countries. It's like Canada and the US.
Right.
But yet it's such a big thing on the other side of it that I kind of go, oh yeah, my kids are Australian and all that sort of thing. But yeah, I kind of push back a little bit just for the amusement of it. So when people say, you're an Australian, I'm like, no, I'm a Kiwi. Oh, okay. It's just like...
Well, yeah, and when I first reached out, I was just like, hey, let's just hang out and,
Yeah, absolutely. I love what you're doing. I love the name of the company as well. Yeah. That's so cool.
Yeah. I feel like it's, you know how hard names are, right? Where it's just like, you can think about it forever or just go with something obvious and live with it. But yeah.
The obvious thing never creates a story. And, when people just get down to 3 or 4 letters or something like that, it's like, oh, yeah, fine. But to have a story behind what you do, I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
I really like the fact that, there's I don't even know the story yet, but there's a story behind it. There has to be. And that makes it more sort of exciting. And you go, oh, and then people get something to attach to as well, because otherwise they can attach to the name and they can put a meaning against it. But when there's a story that you've got that belongs to it, that's even more exciting for them, because then they have the secret. And because they have the secret, they've got something that other people don't have. And so then that makes it even more exciting for them.
Yeah.
I like that stuff.
I like that. Especially when you can make it where there's multiple meanings to it or multiple readings, and each person's understanding of the subject can be different. And there
used to be a surf brand like MCD or something like that. And they used to, I don't know whether it's still around, but they used to put this thing where they would have different meanings for it. They'd just have, like Adam thinks it means, or Adam says it's whatever. So-and-so says it's whatever. But I don't know that they ever
said what it actually means.
But whatever, we actually said what it means, yeah. Or it could mean this, 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 yeah. Which I think is a really cunning outcome of a name. But, you think of something like big brands like Google. When Google came on the scene, people went, well, what is it? Mathematicians knew what a Google was, but then not a lot of other people knew what a Google was. And you kind of go, oh, wow, okay. So, and so people went, well, what does it mean? What's this weird word? What's this weird word relate to? And then, it becomes interesting. I mean, yeah, so many things like that. So many things where it's like, and I think it's a phenomenon of the last, like, maybe 40 years or 30 years or something, where company names used to be, like Smith and Son or whatever. They used to be very static.
Right.
There was no playfulness. And then branding really created playfulness.
Yeah.
And you think of Nike and stuff like that, there's a playfulness in it that doesn't exist. And if it said Phil Knight Industries.
Yeah. Right. And it allows for it to become more than that person, right? And it takes on a meaning rather than
So you get this as a story for about names. This kind of cracks me up a little bit. I'm very grateful for it as well. My father's name is Ramsbottom.
Oh, that's a different. So that's a different secret meaning, huh?
It is, isn't it? So with that, like, there's a town in northern England, sort of not far from Manchester, and it's the town of Ramsbottom.
Mm.
And if you go to that town, I can see my whole father's lineage in that town. Like, and the other big landowners of that town were the Littons, and my father's auntie was a Lytton. So the Littons and the Ramsbottoms were the two big kind of money crew or farming crew in that area. I don't know why it's not called Lyttonville or something.
Yeah, really.
But it's
somebody won out.
Yeah, exactly. And they probably just had the edge, or were better speakers, or became the mayor or something, had more serfs, whatever it was. And it's got a big tower. In the town, there's quite a hilly valley piece. There's a train track that runs through there and stuff. And then there's a big stone tower on top of the hill and stuff. And anyway, my dad, bless him, he's 96 now. He changed it when he was at school, and to Ramsey, and mine's AY. And I don't know why he made that choice. I do know why he made the choice, but I don't know why he chose Ramsey. Obviously, it was close enough. And then he changed it by default when he was, I think, 21, because that's how old you had to be.
Huh.
And so it's a weird thing. We're the Ramseys, but we're not the Ramseys. The Ramseys are a clan from the Scottish Borders district.
Huh. And
actually, on the side of Edinburgh Castle, so if you come around Edinburgh Castle, there is Ramsey Lane. It's with an AY, and the EY is also from that kind of Borders area district. They both have different clans, different tartans, and all those things. Yet we're really English people from down the road that stole a name from the Scots.
Thankfully.
Good work. Yeah. If you're going to rape and pillage, the name was probably the least of things. Least effective. But classic, eh?
Oh, that's funny.
Classic that. And funnily enough, my 21-year-old daughter, she's traveling the world at the moment. And before she went, she made us a WhatsApp family group called the Ramsbottoms. So it's like,
she'll change it back. So when did he move to New Zealand? He came from England?
No, he was always in New Zealand.
Oh, okay.
So his parents came from England when they were like tiny children, and they were there through the Great Depression. Well, my dad was born in, I don't know, 28 or something. Somebody can do the math, not me. And if he's 96 now, so just this really interesting thing. But it's not a name that I can imagine trying to work out how to use in the name of my firm, that's for sure. Although it would stand out.
Yeah, it would. Yeah, that's true.
That'd be a great story, but not one that you'd tell.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty funny. But yeah, I think that's the first time I've ever told the story of that on anything. Yeah. Just classic. But isn't it funny how a name defines you? And he was like, he says, or he said when we were kids that he didn't want us to get teased like he got teased. And I think that was maybe, it wasn't because he was going to have kids at some point. It was because he was teased,
Right.
you know, like, but the construct became because he
Right.
didn't want us to be
Think
teased.
about the next
like
generation. Yeah, the kids.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah, absolutely.
Man, so how's your, I mean, what, it's 6 o'clock there? Like, you're
6 a.m.
Yeah, you're up and Adam here. Are you a normal early riser?
The real me?
Mm-hmm.
No. The real me, you'd find at 1 o'clock in the morning, doodling away at my desk or doing something. The disciplined get stuff done me, and also I'm a surfer. So because I'm a surfer, it's the best time is generally here in the early morning because we end up with, as the coastal winds start. So I would often surf at around 6 a.m. That would be, that'd be mostly jump in the water around 5:30. So 6:30, surf for a couple of hours, get out of the water. But this morning, the tide's not so great. And we've been having quite a bit of wind. This is our windy time of the year.
Oh, okay. But you live right there on the coast, right?
Really right on the coastal strip, but maybe 7 minutes away.
Oh,
so
that's tough.
From the beach.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I can see it. I live on a hill. I have this weird thing that I like to live on a hill. I don't like living on the flat. And in living on a hill, I like to have elevated views. They don't have to be sea views, but I just like to be on a hill and be able to see a distance. And it's, I mean, I don't even really remember when I discovered that. But if I didn't know it, but I'm looking for where I want to live, that's where I always gravitate to.
Right. Yeah. So give me the quick rundown. So born in New Zealand.
Born in New Zealand. Yeah. Did my schooling in a place called Lower Hutt, which is near Wellington. Wellington's capital in New Zealand, so bottom of the North Island. So there's 3 islands, North, South, and Stewart Island at the very bottom. That's tiny. South Island is what we call our mainland, and it's called the mainland because it's kind of a bit of a fight between the 2 islands. The mainland is kind of empty. It doesn't have anywhere near as many people. It has all the Southern Alps. So it has all the amazingly beautiful Southern Alps.
Right.
Which is that's kind of like having the Grand Tetons running down your backyard, you know. So the Southern Alps run from almost the top of the country all the way to the bottom of the country. Down in the bottom, you have Queenstown, which is a real Queenstown, Wanaka, they're sort of lake areas with big mountains, and Mitre Peak. People will have seen Mitre Peak on things where it's like the mountains kind of drop into the sea. So you've got that down there. So anyway, I was born in a town called Christchurch, which is about halfway up. Yeah, and you would know it from the earthquake.
Right.
There was a big earthquake about 10, 15 years ago there.
Yeah.
And
Eurobond Chapel. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It devastated the town, and it's been rebuilt since. Or it's being rebuilt still. Like I was only there a few weeks ago, and there's some fantastic architecture there because of the earthquake. And you're going to get a town that's redeveloped over 25, 30 years. It'll be redeveloped over. So it's all on the latest of technology and stuff like that. So it's pretty interesting. So I was born there. And then my dad worked in advertising. And I think by the time I was 1, we had moved to Wellington, and in Wellington, we lived in a place called Lower Hutt, which was a suburb of Wellington. And my dad was in that era of Mad Men, you know, the TV show. Yeah. So that whole drinking, smoking, you know, that whole ad exec business kind of model.
That's what he was doing essentially too. Like he was in advertising. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he
went
knew
to
from a young
advertising,
age that he wanted to do advertising, like rebranding himself, and like
I
he
don't
already
know. Yeah,
rebranded
yeah,
at
he
21.
did. Eh?
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Somewhere in there was a seed.
right.
Um, yeah, that's interesting. I never put that correlation together. And then so I lived there. I did my schooling there, and then pretty much when I was like about 17, I didn't go to university or anything. When I was about 17, I moved to Auckland,
Mm.
17, 18. And then I really stayed in Auckland, so that's nearly the top of the north. It's not right at the top, but it's the major city in New Zealand. It's the biggest city. And it's quite a fabulous city, Auckland. It's where things like the America's Cup has been, those kind of things. So anyway, moved to Auckland and started out living with my grandmother up there. And I worked in television production and video production. And because I had an opportunity up there, and then I buggered off and traveled when I was in my early 20s around the US and England and Europe and South Africa and all those things. And then
those places aren't close. They're not close to you. That's a lot of travel. Yeah.
Nothing's close when you're in New Zealand. Right. Nothing's close at all. And then really from that, what did I do next?
So did you go to architecture school after that? Yeah. Did you? No?
I've never been.
Oh, okay.
I've never been. I'm yet to get to architecture school.
You went the Frank Lloyd Wright route.
Yeah, I've been Frank Lloyd Wright school, yeah. I ended up being in the clothing industry. And there's a kind of a long story that got me into the clothing industry. But I worked in the clothing industry, and with being in the clothing industry, I then ended up working again globally in the clothing industry. But I had this absolute love for architecture, and I'd wanted to be an architect when I was at school. That was my thing. I was going to be an architect. And I couldn't study architecture because I'm dyslexic. And so I couldn't do the study that would have been given me what they used to call university entrance.
Oh, yeah, to get in.
And so, yeah, to qualify. So I didn't get a choice at that. And that's how come I ended up being clothes designer. I went, well, I had a love of clothing and creating things. And I often laugh with people. They say, how's that being a designer, a building designer? And I go, well, the same thing. People live in them, And there's a lot of analytics. There's a lot of different fabrications. There's a lot of different styles, different fittings, different things you can do with that. And again, you couldn't study to be a clothes designer. There was nowhere to study to be one in New Zealand. So I learned it on the job. But I had this passion that was always to be work in the architectural field. And by the time, I could have just paid to go to university and all the rest, I'm like, too hard. It's still going to be too hard. So I'd always bought and sold and flipped houses. And so learned an awful lot doing that. And so, you'd flip them, you'd do them up, you'd flip them. And my best friend and I, my wife's a Kiwi as well, but she was already here. And I met her through working in clothing. She was already in Australia. And her and I went and worked in England and stuff like that. And when we came back, so I was living in New Zealand originally and working away, doing my thing and flipping some houses and all that sort of stuff. And then came back to Australia, or I came to Australia. She came home after we'd been a couple of years in the UK and setting up clothing design European headquarters for a clothing company, big New Zealand clothing company. And when I came back, I came here and I did some consulting. And then I was over traveling. Like I used to get on a plane every 2 weeks. So every 2 weeks I left the country. And I like to travel, but 7 years of that probably got too much.
Right.
So those 2 years have been not static in the UK because there's always in Italy or in Ireland or somewhere in the UK or somewhere around Europe. But I was like, oh, it's much more doable as a lifestyle. It was the 7 years, the first 5 were really fun, probably, or the first 3 were really fun. And then after that, you just roll out of bed, get in a taxi, go to the airport, roll into a plane, get out, go to meetings, do your things, do what you needed to do. And I think repetitive because you keep going to the same places a lot. You'd always be in London, you'd always be in Paris, you'd always be in those kind of cities, Hong Kong, whatever. So, Los Angeles.
Yeah, sounds boring.
So you would just constantly be there.
Yeah.
New York, yeah, terrible stuff. Here's the trick. One of the reasons I got into clothing is because I couldn't figure out how I was ever going to be able to afford to travel myself. My parents didn't travel, but they went overseas when they were really, like when they got married, on a boat from New Zealand to Australia, spent a couple of years. That was their honeymoon. They left to go. Yeah. And then, I think they spent maybe a year or so. So they came to Australia and toured around a little bit and then went and worked. That was their honeymoon. And then they caught a boat back as well, like a ship. A ship took them to and from. And then other than flying around a little bit in New Zealand, I think when I moved to Australia, I'm positive of this actually, I shouldn't say that thing, was that they got their passports because I moved to Australia and I said to them, hey, come on over, I'll fly you over. So anyway, I came here and my best buddy and I bought a house together, and his wife, at that time, Becky was my fiance, his wife and my fiance, the 4 of us lived in it together. And so this great big house. And then we tore it to bits and put it back together over the next 18 months. And there'd never been a house in this area that we lived in. There'd been one sale ever over $1 million. So we were like, okay, can we make this into $1 million sale? And we got $980,000 for the house. Wow. And I paid $320 for it. And we spent $200 on it.
Wow. This was like in the 90s or?
No, this was in 2000.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And that got us a fair bit of attention. And so people started asking me more than anything, because my best buddy, he wouldn't be bothered to work that hard, asking me, could I help them with their homes? And I was like, yeah. Anyway, here you have to be licensed in one form or another. So I started out just doing interior design with people. So not moving anything structural. If I needed to move anything structural, I'd just use a builder.
Right.
And under their license. And I did that for a few years. Anyway, then I became a building designer from becoming a building designer, which, sorry to all the building designers, is like a glorified draftsperson, I suppose.
Huh.
As opposed to somebody who studies architecture, where they study the whole meanings of buildings and landscapes and all these things. But in doing that, I went, okay, I want to elevate my knowledge. So I started going to any architectural conference, talk, whatever I could get myself into. And that has been my journey ever since, for something like 20 years. And I started my podcast around early COVID.
Okay, yeah.
Early COVID, I started it. And that just blossomed out my network, and then also my learning.
Right.
Because whenever I'm traveling, I'll go and see those architects. Well, not always, but go and see them, go and hang out in their studios, go and meet with them, go to site with them. It's like going to a masterclass on something.
Yeah.
Every time you step foot out of the country. So
what is it?
That's kind of the journey.
Yeah. What is it? Don't you just love the podcast form? Like the way you can connect with a person over in an hour, right? And then you're sort of bonded in a way. And the amount that you learn, and you can just, put out so much information, and some people listen to it, some don't. But I feel like I get the most benefit out of it.
You sound like me, the same. Hey?
Yeah, exactly.
So I go, if nobody listens, that's fine. Yeah, that's fine. It's just, it's us Ramseys. But if nobody listens, who cares?
Yeah, exactly.
I got everything out of it and more probably than I expected.
Right. So when you started Yours Up, what was the idea? Did you just have a few people you wanted to talk to, or did you start going international?
I'll tell you how it actually happened. I went international really early. So I was in Austin, Texas, and I was on the Austin Homes Tour.
Yeah, what's your connection with Austin?
First of all, what it was is the same buddy that I bought and sold and flipped that house with. We've done multiples of those over the years now. And he's my best buddy. He lives like a couple of 100 meters from me up the road. We said, we need to go somewhere. We need a trip, like a boys' trip. We need a boys' trip somewhere. And so we said, let's go to Los Angeles and we'll start there and then we'll see what happens. And I'd been on a flight, like a Qantas flight to New Zealand or somewhere. And I had seen in a in-flight magazine an article on Austin. And I went, years and years ago, I spent about 6 months in Dallas. So I'd spent the 6 months in Dallas. And in that time, I'd gone to Austin. I'd gone to Fredericksburg. I hadn't gone to San Antonio, I don't think. But I'd gone to some of these other towns, been to Fort Worth, all these things. And I'd also driven like up to Boston, and I'd driven down to Florida, other just places in that time, in that 6 months. I saw this article on Austin. So we're talking, I don't know, maybe 9 years ago, something like that. And I said, well, why don't we do Austin as well? And he's, yeah, sure, let's do it. That'd be fun. That's somewhere new. Let's go there. So we did. First of all, we were in Los Angeles and we were talking with some friends of his in Los Angeles. And one of the girls said, I've got this. They said, where are you going next? And we said, Austin. And they said, when are you going? And we said, in a few days, We hadn't actually booked any tickets or anything. We're like, sometime soon. We were debating whether we were going to drive or whether we were going to fly. We were going to road trip it, what we were going to do. At some point, we had to come home to our wives and kids. But
right.
Anyway,
same time.
At some time, yeah. So we decided to fly anyway. And she said, I've got this really great friend who is in Austin. You've got to hook up with him. He's a surfer and all the rest, da-da-da-da. We're like, okay, cool. So we land in Austin. He's the only person we know in Austin. We ring before we go. She's rung him, told him we're coming. We ring him and he goes, yeah, let's hook up. I'll give you an address. Come and grab a cab and come and see me. And we were like, okay, sure. So we did that, and great guy, absolutely wonderful guy. And he was the artist relations manager for Fender Guitars for the Southern State. And the next thing that I really, kind of like have any recollection of was after being in his office and going out drinking, was waking up again in my hotel and going far out of that night of all these different clubs and bars and stuff we went to. And then he just became an absolute firm friend. Like from that, we stayed there like a week. And we hung out with him about 3 or 4 other times. He was just like, we've got to take the boat out on the lake. We've got to do these things. It was just like, wow. It's like having this incredible tour guide. Yeah, just an amazing guy. A guy called Jeff Van Zandt. And he used to be...
Even his name sounds cool. Yeah.
Yeah, Van Zandt, doesn't it? Yeah. He used to be Eric Johnson's... So Eric Johnson, the guitarist, musician.
Oh, right.
Jeff used to be Eric Johnson's guy, that would organize his shows and his guitars to be ready and all these kinds of things. And anyway, through that, I'm in Austin. The day before we're leaving, I pick up the Austin Homes magazine, and it says that there's this architectural open homes tour. And I've been looking at homes while I'm there and stuff, but there's this architectural open homes tour that's on in October. And I'm like, I'm going to come back for that. I did come back for it. And that year, I met a bunch of different people. But over the year, I'd sort of done a bit of research, and I come across Matt Rising. And I was watching the Build Show. In fact, my best buddy was the guy who come across Matt Rising. He said, you got to watch this guy. He's from Texas. Oh, he's from Austin. We know Austin, that kind of stuff. Anyway, Matt Risinger, and I get to Austin, I go, I've got to make some connections with some people. And anyway, so I just literally just reached out to different architects and said, hey, I'd love to come and say hi. I'm from Australia, all the rest. And they were like, yeah, sure, come by. This is our address. Pop in. Like, it was like,
it's amazing how much that works, right? Like once you try it, and yeah. And sure, you have a few people who say no, but then you say okay, and you go on to the next one, right? And yeah,
isn't it just incredible?
Yeah.
And so I did that, and I'd gone and met a guy called Hugh Jefferson Randolph. I can't remember Hugh. Sorry, great architect. I'd gone and caught up with him, and in doing that, the house that he had on the homes tour, Matt Risinger had built, and he was standing there with Matt, and I went, I want to meet Matt Risinger. So I went and, kind of butted in and met Matt, and I said to Matt, I'm thinking, I want to know more about him, and I went, I'd love to interview you. And Matt goes, sure, you've got a podcast or something, don't you? And I went, yeah. And I'm thinking, no, you don't. But you've said you do.
Oh, that's funny. Before you did, yeah. You pull out your phone and you're like, yeah, here's my podcast. Let's start right now. Right.
Let's get this show on the road.
This is my professional podcast phone. Yeah.
I had his card, and I must have held on to it for about, I don't know, maybe 18 months before I started the podcast. And
was he your first guest? Was he the first guest?
No.
Okay, yeah.
No, God, no. Yeah. He was like well down the list.
You got to practice.
But I saw him. I'd seen him once after that, and I said, we must do that interview. But I still didn't have a podcast. And he said, yeah, hook me up. Let's do it like this. And anyway, just that kind of thing, which was really funny. There was a point when I went, you know what, you've got to do this, and or not. Really? You don't have to, but if you're going to, do it. And then I saw it as being, again, this opportunity to just network. And as I say, it was very early in COVID when I started it. I already had everything in place to start it before then. And I'd been through all my network of people. I kept going back to the homes tour. That was the other thing. Every year I'd go back to the homes tour. I got to know them at the A. I took other people to the homes tour. I said I would be talking to somebody. So second homes tour I think I went with my buddy Kaz, my best buddy, and we went, and we were walking around and we were talking about the architecture. And so we were commenting on things, why is that like that? Isn't that interesting? Then we'd go and grab the architect and we'd ask them about things, or we'd grab the builder and we'd ask them about things. And I noticed this couple that seemed to be behind us a lot. Like we'd be like, oh, hi, you guys, like this. It was like we would say, oh, well, let's go and do whatever. We had our thing mapped out, which house we were going to next. And this couple kept sort of just being there. And so finally we started chatting to them, and they said, oh, we're developers and we're from Houston and we find what you guys are talking about just absolutely fascinating. And we're thinking, God, we're doing a lot of shit. And they said, but like you're dissecting the design. You're like, yeah. And we haven't heard people talking like this so much before. So I don't even know what we were really saying, but we were very aware of details and stuff like that. And so they were like, what house are you going to next? And we'd go, oh, we're going to this one. And they'd be like, okay, cool, we'll see you there. And we ended up kind of hanging out with them a bit. And then I remember standing on the driveway of one of these homes and going, well, next year I'm going to bring some people to this tour. And so that started it.
That's cool.
I did that. And yeah, and then sometimes there'd be Americans, sometimes there'd be from other places, but just a couple of people, really hokey, not some great organized format or anything. And then I went, oh, I should really try and do more with this, because there's so many opportunities for people to grow and learn. And then COVID came along, and I I squeaked back into the country. So I got invited to the Texas Society of Architects conference through my contacts. And I went on that, and I went into Los Angeles. I went skiing for a couple of days in Los Angeles, and then down in the back at Big Bear and stuff. And then I flew in and did the TSA conference. And then from the TSA conference, where I, of course, met a bunch of these people and a bunch of people that I got to know over the years in Austin from the Open Homes Tour. And then I went back to Los Angeles, up to Palm Springs, and came back from Palm Springs and got on a plane, and they closed the country, closed Australia's borders. Crazy. Like about 5 days later. Wow. So I just got home. And the funny thing, I'm still on a Kiwi passport, New Zealand passport. So I could have ended up being just diverted to New Zealand for all of COVID.
Yeah.
And I had this thing, well, if I'm going to get stuck somewhere, America wouldn't be a bad place to get stuck. And my insurance would probably pay for it for quite a few years. Because I checked with whether it was called a pandemic or an epidemic or all these things. And having no idea, none of us had any idea what was really about to happen. And so ended up coming home and then going, you know what? I'd already started putting everything in place for the podcast. And then really, I just got my first 12 recordings away. And then I started. Then I actually released them, or released a couple. And kind of got a bit of a rhythm. And then now it's every week. Sometimes I record twice a week. Sometimes I don't record.
That's impressive. That's a quick clip that you're on. Well, and sorry, I got my son just turned 8 years old today. So I have to pick him up. Happy birthday. Yeah, we're picking him up from school soon and then going to a movie theater for a special little day. So I've got 5 minutes left, but I really want to talk to you about the TV show and the idea there and how that sort of came about and what's it about.
I'll give it in the quick version. So I had my podcast, obviously, and from the podcast, I got an opportunity. I was asked if I would put one of my homes on a TV show in Australia and whether I'd expose one of my homes on a TV show called Australia's Best House with Megan Gale, the supermodel. And so I went, yeah, sure. I put this house on there. And from that, the production company was looking for a new host for one of their other shows for Queensland. And so we're scouting a new host. The host that I had, a great architect called Joe Snell, had been the host that had interviewed me on the show that I went on. And anyway, Joe had said, and the editing crew had said, this guy might be interested in being a host. He's Queensland based. He's been on our show. He was really easy in front of the camera.
He's got some nice hats.
Yeah. So they contacted me and said, we're doing an open casting call and would you be interested in applying? And I went, yeah, sure. And I put my show reel together for them. And then they made me, jump through various hoops and audition and all those things. And then, so I got the show, I got to do the Queensland show. And doing that, we shoot, say, about 3 days every month, maybe 4, just depends. But nice. That's it. And we've just shot for a year. And then all those ones are hitting television now. And they may end up syndicated to America. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
And then I've started the next season as well. The show's called Dream Homes Revealed Australia, which we deal with a lot of architects and a lot of builders and interior designers on it, and go to some phenomenal homes. It's a bit like going on a homes tour.
That's amazing. Are you meeting with the architects, talking through the ideas of the project, or more?
Yes.
Or it's just like your Austin tour, just going through and talking about it with your buddy, and yeah.
No, it's kind of a bit of both, actually. I get to meet. It depends on who's been responsible for putting it on the show, but generally, I get to meet with either an architect or an interior designer. sometimes I'm meeting with a builder, but the architect will be there, but the builder is the one who's they're talking to. But I'll hang out with the architect and, talk about why you did this, how you did that, what was what was this? And sometimes sometimes it'll be a developer that goes, hey, I want to expose this. They get an opportunity to put something really special on there.
Yeah.
But so that part of it is another thing.
I love that idea. Of that idea of like educating the public more about architecture and space and the ideas behind it, and I'm not normally a huge fan of those design shows, but I loved Extraordinary Homes, So the same thing, I just kind of emailed Pierce Taylor, that architect host, and had a good long Zoom call with him talking through it. And, I was like, I love how you actually get into the design of the building and talk about it. And it was kind of surprising where he was saying, I had to fight with the producers to keep all my sketches and all that stuff in because they didn't think it was all that interesting. They just wanted walk in the door and say ooh and ah. But I just want more of that. That there's so much that goes into the design of things, as you know, right? And being able to show people and demonstrate and show the difference between good design and not thoughtful design.
I have one of your I've got to find you on Instagram quickly. One of your posts that you put on Instagram is one of my favorites, and I show it to people.
Oh, nice, thanks.
I think it's this one.
Let me see. Oh yeah, that one, the spinning part T diagram. Yeah. Or
it's that one, but it might be the one before that. Hold on.
Where I go through the design process. Yeah.
That one where you talk about, there's a ravine.
Yeah.
We're going to bridge it. How do we bridge it? What would be the benefit of doing it one way? What would be the benefit of doing it another way? And I have this thing that I call land whispering.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And that is the essence. I don't think it's that particular one, but that's the house. Right. But it starts with you talking about you're standing on a road.
Right.
You're looking at the landscape. And I go, I have this thing called land whispering where I go, we've got one land, one air, one water. So we've got to look after them. If we've only got that number of things, we have to be the responsible ones because we're about to be the ones who draw the picture that says that we're going to destroy that piece of habitat in some way. And then when I look at what you did there, you start with this, there's the different ways that we can kind of honor the site, and what we can get from it, and then how to be creative within what we get from it to get the best out of it.
Right.
Whilst any one of the things that you started with would work, whether it was long like this or they'll work.
Right.
It's just, how do you really get something? And I think your final words in it is and play, or it's something like
revise. Yeah. Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Revise.
Yeah.
Revise.
That's what it is. Right.
I get that. And I go, that was probably in your lot of things when I found Hilo Buffalo was I went, this guy, I've got to talk to this guy because this guy, we're seeing things in a similar manner and so many people don't.
Yeah. Let's do this again. This is super fun. I feel like we just kind of scratched the surface here. That's good.
Yeah.
Well, I just, appreciate what you're doing. And again, I just love seeing what you're doing and want more of it.
You can visit architecting.com, that's architect-ing.com, to see images from this week's guest.
And please rate and review the show wherever you listen to podcasts.
Have a great week and keep connecting.
Hi, I'm Eli. This show is made by my mom and dad and these people.
This podcast is powered by The Plug.
This is Sarah Hubbard, host of You and Me Kid, a podcast about starting and raising a family on your own. We just launched season 2, and I'm speaking with single moms, those still considering, and experts in relevant fields to give you a real sense of what the day-to-day experience of solo parenting looks and feels like. Plus, this season, I've partnered with California Cryobank, the #1 sperm bank in the U.S. So wherever you are in the process, this podcast provides some support, humor, and helpful information. Listen to You and Me Kid wherever you get your podcasts.
The Rodecaster Pro 2 is the world's most powerful all-in-one audio solution for all types of creators, including podcasters. Graffiti and Julius use one at the plug. It offers studio-quality audio and revolutionary features for creators. While being incredibly easy to use, Rodecaster Pro 2, all-in-one production solution for podcasting. It's on sales for $690 right now, and there's a link in this episode description. Check it out.